In this week's tutorial, we're going to be talking about the untold secret to overcoming lower back pain. We've got to stop doing essentially what we're going to be talking about in this tutorial to our lower backs. And it's something that doesn't really get talked about, and when I explain it to people, they sort of glaze over a little bit because they don't think it's necessarily that important. If you are struggling with lower back pain and you do want help with what we're going to talk about in this tutorial, please do click the link below and go through to my How to Overcome Lower Back Pain consultation and coaching. There are a number of options there for you, and what we can do is get a plan together to start you on the journey to overcoming your lower back pain. So what is this untold secret that I'm going on about? Well, it's small movement errors. And what this basically means, number one, is rounding of the lower back. So for example, when we go to lift, we round the lower back. This is putting extra stress on the lower back, it's putting extra stress on the discs of the lower back, moving them towards a potential injury. So that in some respects is number one, which is rounding the lower back. And it's not just when we're lifting, it could be whilst we're sitting in the car, could be whilst we're sitting at the desk. There are a number of ways this can be causing you a problem, but again, that can be talked about at greater depth during the consultation and coaching. Number two is the hip wink. So that is if people have seen people when they squat, as you go down, as you get to a certain point, your sort of hip tucks under like that. It's only a very small movement, but that's adding extra stress to the L5, S1 segment of the lower back, and it can be irritating the disc, which can then therefore irritate the sciatic nerve, and then that can have its problems. So it could be a low back issue, or it could be a sciatica type of issue as well. So number two is the hip wink, and again, as I mentioned, that is during an exercise, but it can also be during any sort of lifting, bending type of movement, because that's when the hip wink generally comes about. Number three is not bracing. Now, what I've described so far are some mechanisms. There are more mechanisms, but I'm just trying to give you a few scenarios and a few specific movement errors that can be causing a problem. And number three is not bracing. So what does not bracing mean? Well, it could be not bracing whilst lifting. So it could be a heavy lift. So if I've got a big weight in front of me, it could be getting a good brace in the torso, maintaining the neutral spine, coming down and then lifting up. It could be a light brace, which could just be coming down, just picking something light up and then coming back up. It could even be just a light brace whilst walking. People don't realise as they're walking, if they're walking properly, you will just get a light brace, swing of the arms, and then that's stabilising the spine. So first of all, when I say not bracing, first of all, it has to be an appropriate brace, which could be light brace for any light tasks, heavy brace for any heavy tasks. So that's sort of the first thing to understand with regards to that. And then also it's knowing when to brace. It could be pre-bracing, which is basically getting everything braced before you do the task, and you do it consciously, because what that will then do is then help you just unconsciously brace as you walk, as you lift, as you bend, so on and so forth. Now again, there are nuances and caveats to everything that I'm talking about here, so don't just take it on face value. And then why are we doing it? Well, essentially, we're doing it to stabilise the spine. So when we look at the lumbar spine, there are no bony structures to stabilise it. So it's all down to the muscles. If you look at the thoracic spine, it's got the bony structure of the rib cage to give it the stability. When we look at the lower spine, it's all down to the muscles to do, which is where that conscious pre-brace comes into that I'm talking about. Because what we need to do is lock in the abs. You can lock in the lats as well, with the glutes as well. There's all these different things that you can do when you're trying to pre-brace. So number three is the people not bracing. Number four is lifting from the spine. So we all kind of know this, it's in a lot of manual handling, or it's in every manual handling, and basically what it means is not doing that, which is kind of combining a lot of what we've talked about before with regards to the rounding of the spine and the hip wink. So what we've got to be able to do is basically not do this and start doing this. So getting in this position, this allows us to do the third one, which is not bracing, and then what we can do is start to hinge from the hip, and then we can lift our weight that we're trying to lift. Obviously, if it's a lighter one, same thing. Hinge from the hip, come down and lift up. So all the time, we're lifting from the hips and we're not lifting from the spine. So we've got our 4 movement errors that we're doing, which is rounding of the spine, winking of the hips, we're not bracing, and we're lifting from the spine. What we're going to start to do now is talk about why we need to stop doing this and what we can do in its place. So what are these small movement errors doing? So this is maybe a new concept that you're understanding right now, but essentially, as I've talked about, small movement errors. Now, the first thing this is doing, this is creating what is known as micro injuries or micro traumas. So these are just small little injuries that are going unnoticed. So you're essentially building all of these up, and then it hits a tipping point. And what then is happening is when it hits that tipping point, that's when you get the pain. So you may be sort of lifting like that. Okay, 12 kilos, yeah, that's fine, no problem. Off I go, I carry off my weight or carry off my shopping bags, and it's really not a problem. But that little micro injury is just added to that little micro injury account. So you've got a little check in that box. So there's a little micro injury there. You come along and then big heavy weight. Okay, yeah, no problem, that's fine. Off we go. I can carry that away, or I can do my repetitions. Okay, yep, that's fine. I'm not getting any pain now. Yep, no problem. Again, we've got a number of micro injuries ticked in that box. When we sit down, we're sitting down with a rounded spine. We've got poor posture. We're slumped in. We may be moving from the spine. Again, that's putting extra stress on the box. We're ticking more boxes there, more checks in the micro injury account. What then happens is you come along, bar on the floor, very sort of normal thing that you might do. It's never happened before, or it's not happened in the recent past. You come down, you go, oh, there it is, oh, and then your back's gone. You may need to lie on the floor. You may need to do what you need to do. Now, it wasn't that moment that was the problem. It was all these moments where we were lifting, carrying, doing our exercise with a rounded back. It was all these moments that built up. It hit that, or it hit the threshold, and then picking that one up was the tipping point. And then what then starts to happen is when we sit in the car, once it's all settled down and we sit in the car, oh, my back, oh, it's a nightmare. The seat's the problem. What we need to be able to do as a part of the rehabilitation is be able to lift properly. Because when we come down in this position, we've got our neutral spine, we're braced, we've got a little check in the healthy back account, if you will. So what we then start to do is we then build up towards, so we've put all these checks in the back pain account, let's say. Right, let's start putting checks in the back health account. We need to get those up to there. Now, there's a secret. When it comes to overcoming lower back pain, in the initial stages, you're going to be very prone to back injury because you haven't got a margin of safety, which you need to build up. And you build up that margin of safety by hinging at the hip, by moving correctly, by lifting correctly, by picking things up off the floor correctly. Yes, it may seem like an unnecessary task because it's only a light bar that weighs maybe a couple of kilos, but in the initial stages, I need to learn proper back health, which is maintaining that position and picking anything up using that position, carrying things using that position, opening doors using that position, closing doors using that position. So when I grab a door handle, I'm not sort of pulling the door. I'm setting myself, opening the door, and then I'm walking through it. Yes, these are slightly contrived examples because I'm using a cable machine and I'm not in everyday life, but we need to be thinking about it. So when we grab that door handle, there is a little bit of a brace. We pull the door handle and we're not pulling it, we're pulling it. So we're just being a little bit more in the way of conscious of what we're supposed to be doing. Now these examples, I could go on. And I could go on for a long time, and there are many different scenarios that can be covered that could be specific to you. What we need to do during the consultation and the coaching is figure out what all these scenarios are. Get them all listed out, and we can start correcting all these movement errors, give you good movement, which then starts checking the healthy spine account rather than the back pain account. Build up that margin of safety so that when you get into a scenario where you can't maintain proper position, you've got that margin of safety. So as that margin of safety starts to get eaten into, your back pain is, say, here at this level, but we can come out of it before going into pain. What a lot of people are doing, because they're so sensitive to it and they haven't got a margin of safety, they come in, as soon as they do something wrong, bang, they go straight into back pain. What we need to be able to do is get you down and then up before you get to back pain. That's when you know you've got a healthy spine. Obviously that needs to be explained further, and we can do that in the online consultation and coaching. Hopefully this has been helpful. So to quickly summarize what we've talked about, to be able to overcome lower back pain, we need to start removing small movement errors, which are the untold secret to overcoming lower back pain, because it's all about exercise, it's not about everyday life, but we've got to bring the two together. The small movement errors, or 4 as an example: hip wink, rounding of the spine, not bracing, and lifting from the spine. If we can start to do that, we can build that margin of error, start checking the healthy spine account, and we can overcome lower back pain. So if you've enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button below. If you've got any comments or any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. If you want to watch more of these videos, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. And if you like this video, please do again hit the thanks button and leave a donation.